Welcome and good morning, everyone. Welcome back. On behalf of the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. I'm your moderator. I'm Josh Bath. I'm a realtor, licensed realtor with the board for 29 years. I'm an owner of 4 brokerages. I sit on the Professional Conduct Committee of your board and the Government Relations Committee of your board. And I am beyond excited to be moderating this panel. We have 3 mayors that are going to tell us all about what's happening in the cities from 2021 and beyond. So welcome to our event, 2021 and Beyond Tri-Cities Municipal Update. So we're pleased to have with us today all 3 mayors, which is no easy feat. These mayors have extremely busy schedules, so they were able to negotiate and get us in there so they could share their knowledge with us. Before we begin, I'd like to ask you to please hold your questions until the Q&A period at the end of the presentation. There is a chat function. You're welcome to type a question in there and we'll keep an eye on that for you as we move out towards the end. Once we open the Q&A period, go ahead and type your question if you have any at that point as well too, and we'll go ahead and ask the panelists on your behalf. Keep your questions, if you can, as clear and concise so we know exactly how to convey what it is you're trying to ask, if that's all right. Now, with no further ado, let me introduce our panel. First up, we have Mayor Richard Stewart from Coquitlam. Richard was elected to the Coquitlam City Council in 2005 and became mayor 3 years later in 2008. Before his time in civic politics, Richard served his community in the provincial government as MLA for the Coquitlam-Millardville area from between 2001 and 2005. During this time, he was the MLA responsible for Francophone affairs. As a member of the Government Caucus Committee on the Economy and chair of the Select Standing Committee on Education. Please welcome Mayor Stewart.
Thank you, Josh. It's a tremendous pleasure to be able to join you all. I'm afraid I arrived late, so I didn't get any of the breakfast, but it's a pleasure to be here in any case. I do want to talk a little bit about the passion of my life. My career was in housing. It was in housing affordability, code standards for the development of more efficient and safer housing, and all that kind of stuff. And never envisioned myself in this position. But now, of course, we get to regulate and to, in fact, plan for the development of housing. And it is, of course, as everyone knows, it's about the most critical public policy issue in our communities. For the last 5 years, the supply of housing has been in critical condition, and obviously housing prices have reflected that. So we always perceive that housing is an important social good, that one of the strongest determinants of the success of a family is stable and affordable housing. And that's really hard to get now, other than through ownership. And there's lots of folks that find themselves in a position where home ownership is not as viable. I've got 2 of our 4 kids have managed to get into the market. Well, 3 of them, one of them got in the market years ago, but 2 recently got in the market. But it was primarily by, as happens often, the bank of mom and dad. And that isn't something that's available to every family. And so we struggle as a community to try to make sure that we are developing right across the region a strong supply of affordable and diverse types of housing. Metro Vancouver, the regional district, has an important role to play there. We have a regional planning function that Metro Vancouver plays in trying to determine how we move forward as a region with enough agricultural land, enough industrial land, enough office kind of employment land, retail land, and ultimately enough diverse supply of housing. We as a city have adopted a housing strategy that tries to support a strong supply of diverse housing options, ranging from the secondary suite and the single family home with carriage home sorts of applications where we can densify the older neighborhoods gently, but also a lot of support for a strong and high density housing around SkyTrain stations. You'll hear later that Brad West is in about the position I was when I got elected. We had a long-standing promise that Coquitlam would be the next to have SkyTrain. That promise was made in 1986, and again made in 1992, and again made in 1996, 1998, over and over again. But we kept being jumped over by other SkyTrain lines. You'll hear from Brad that Port Coquitlam is waiting for that extension, and not just waiting, but working hard to achieve the extension. At the Coquitlam Central Station, SkyTrain actually does that. It allows, there's a branch line that is pointed toward Port Coquitlam, ready for when a decision is made to extend SkyTrain to Port Coquitlam. And part of the reason for that is because I've said it often, the region doesn't really have a shortage of housing. It has a shortage of SkyTrain stations where we can build dense housing forms. Our challenge as a region, of course, is we're bounded in on all four sides. To the west, we have the Pacific Ocean. Up north, we have mountains. To the east, we have cherished agricultural and sensitive lands. And to the south, there's a really big army that prevents our expansion southward. So we're left with necessity to become a compact and dense region. That necessity doesn't apply to Calgary. So they just like us, they have an urban containment boundary, and they move it every year though. We have an urban containment boundary that hasn't really moved in the 10 years that it's been in place. And we hope we'll be able to maintain that urban containment boundary so that ultimately we don't keep taking up more land and spreading the region out more in an unsustainable way, but try to make the best use of the land we have through building up rather than spreading out. And so that's the city's program, which is called, at the single family level, it's called Housing Choices. It allows a range of housing options and densification options for single family neighborhoods, neighborhood attached residential, including 2 or 3 or even 4 houses on a lot, a wide range of secondary suite options, including carriage homes. And each of those, of course, come with challenges. But then around the stations, and we've got, Coquitlam has 4 stations. I didn't do the slide presentation, but most people will recognize the Evergreen line. The yellow stations are in Coquitlam, or the Burquitlam station. The low heat is just out of Coquitlam, but we are benefiting from it. And of course, the 2 stations in Port Moody, one of which we benefit from over near Falcon. And then the 3 Coquitlam Central Station, Lincoln Station, and the Terminus Station at Lafarge Lake. Each of those stations, and in fact, urban design would require that when rapid transit stops, when it comes to a station, we need to put a dense supply of employment and residential near those stations in order to allow that the region, which is about to absorb about 1 million people in the next couple of decades, won't keep the same car ownership rate that it has now. Our current car ownership ratio is about 60%. That means that if you add 1 million people, you add 600,000 cars. And I've said it often, and Brad will shudder at it again. But if you wanted to park 600,000 cars, you need to pave an area the size of Port Coquitlam. And we think Port Coquitlam is a nice community. We don't want to pave it, but we also don't want to have to widen the road network, and as much as it would need to be widened to accommodate 600,000 more cars. So we want as much as possible to have other transportation options, and to allow those transportation options to support higher density housing so that we don't sprawl as a region. So that's the general gist of our housing strategies in Coquitlam, is to target higher densities around SkyTrain stations and to densify gently other corridors, including places like Austin Heights, which of course is undergoing some significant density increases. We allow 25-story towers in Austin Heights, and we will have 3 towers shortly. We have 1.5 now. And lots more work to be done in Austin Heights. We have a couple of the policy directions that the province has kind of headed in. One of them, the province and the feds last year came up with an expert panel on housing supply. The panel's mandate was figure out how to increase supply of housing as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, the panel didn't have any experts from local government on it. It had other expertise on the panel, but nonetheless, the panel's recommendations came out with some really strong recommendations related to increasing the supply and speeding up the development process as much as possible and trying to get rid of some of the barriers that municipalities currently face in trying to adapt our housing supply to meet those demands. We in Coquitlam are growing among the fastest growing communities in Metro Vancouver. We're adding housing supply at a faster rate than almost anybody, other than perhaps Surrey and the township of Langley, depending on the week. We're faster than Vancouver per capita, but we're still not fast enough. We aren't making our housing targets either, and so there's so many. If the region, so the province has actually established housing needs, the requirement that every community come up with a housing needs assessment, that we determine how much housing our community ought to be providing based on the regional housing needs assessments. And similarly, the regional government is doing the same kind of work. And our goal then is to try to meet our housing needs as a community. We know that some communities haven't been, and we know that, for example, District of North Vancouver hasn't grown at all. It actually has shrunk in the population for the last 5 years. And that creates challenges. And they get to make their own decisions, but it creates challenges for the rest of the region in trying to meet the housing supply. All of us have been to an economics class. We know that supply and demand are intertwined, and that if supply is less than demand, prices go up. And we have seen that for decades now in Metro Vancouver, where housing prices have been rising by roughly 11% per year, although more than that recently, while wages rise by 3.5% or something. So it has made land much more precious and land much more hard for first-time buyers to get into. And it has made the owners of single-family homes millionaires across Metro Vancouver. Obviously, that inequity is something the province wants to challenge a little bit. Some of the recommendations of the expert panel you undoubtedly have heard, including getting rid of the homeowner grant, would not be palatable to government. Government needs homeowners to support them as well. And so I immediately, after publishing its report, the government distanced itself from those kinds of recommendations, but supported recommendations aimed ultimately at improving the supply of what you folks sell. Coquitlam also does a lot of work in rental housing. We have about 6,000 rental units in the books now, under construction or in the approvals process, 6,000 units, of which almost 1,000 units are non-government funded non-market housing. They're non-market or affordable housing options that aren't funded by government. They're funded out of cross-subsidy within the development process. So we will hopefully see more and more of that in order to get rental housing available, because we know that some people can't get into the market yet. They'll need to rent, and some people will rent their whole lives. But I still am a strong believer that folks need to get into the housing market, and you folks, your jobs are to get them connected and figure out something that will help them get into the housing market, because it's a more sustainable future. I had we have two other issues I did want to comment on quickly, and they relate to the way your sector works. We're challenged a little bit. We know that the single family home right now is effectively being subsidized by, in many cases, by Canada Revenue Agency, by the way they treat single family homes from the perspective of a builder. There are builders that, of course, build single family almost exclusively, custom homes on properties. And ultimately, they end up taking that basement. In Coquitlam, you're allowed 5,500 square feet of living area, including the garage. And that still seems big enough to be able to get a basement of almost 2,000 square feet and therefore make 2 suites, which isn't acceptable under the BC Building Code. The BC Building Code allows a secondary suite in a single family home. The secondary suite is usually built without permits and usually creates challenges in a lot of other ways. The social impacts of that kind of issue include a lack of parking in the neighborhood, the complaints against the tenant, the lack of tenant rights in some circumstances, and the fact that for the life of the building, the city will end up having to deal with the bylaw enforcement issues of the secondary suite, the tertiary suite, if you will, the third unit in a house. That has been problematic in some respects because there are realtors that advertise that secondary suite inappropriately. And we get challenged, our bylaws officers, some of you have heard from them, saying, please don't put that in the listing. Call it something else, but don't represent that there is a second suite in there, because there isn't. It is illegal under the law in British Columbia. We do recognize that Coquitlam is supportive of more housing units. We just have to work within the BC Building Code, and the BC Building Code doesn't permit that secondary suite. We will probably get to the point relatively soon, actually, where the carriage home and the secondary suite are available on the same property. So you end up with a tertiary unit, but it's in a second building. It's not attached to the single detached home with a secondary suite. That's about it. Coquitlam, as I say, is absolutely supportive of increasing the supply of housing. We need it. We desperately need it in this region for the next generation and for the realities associated with the demographic decisions that weigh on immigration, where this aging society, a whole bunch of people that are my age and older, are starting to contemplate their retirement years, or they're already retired and they're not in the workforce, and the workforce needs younger people. And so, as you saw with the Syrian refugees, for example, refugee families largely headed by 30-year-olds and 35-year-olds came into the country with 30 years left to work in the employment field, and with young children that will add to fill our schools and all that sort of thing. Of course, in a region like this, that's a really challenging thing for them to find housing, and we're working hard on those kinds of challenges as well. But with immigration and with natural population growth and with migration from other provinces that aren't as attractive as British Columbia, we're going to continue to see growth in this region. And our job as municipalities is to accommodate 1 million of them, 1 million new residents in the next 25 years. And we're going to do our part in Coquitlam. I'll stop there.
Mayor Stewart, thank you very much. That was fantastic. You touched on some key issues that were discussed at the Political Action Committee days earlier this week with the various MLAs across Canada, and one of them being supply. That's the real issue or critical issue facing Canada is housing supply. Naturally, there's strong demand, but do you think Coquitlam has enough land to meet the supply of 1 million residents in the next 25 years?
Coquitlam will contribute. Right now, our population our population was in the 30,000 range when I was born in Coquitlam. It's now 150,000, and it will increase again by the same amount in the next 25 years. So we have to accommodate tens of thousands of new units of housing, and we're on track to do that. In fact, we have something like 25,000 units in application right now, which is, we usually build 2,000 units on a really, really good year. So 25,000 units is 12 years of housing, for 12 years of really, really busy planning department and building department. We're ramping up for both of those. We know that not all of those projects will get built, but some of them certainly will. And I agree. The expert panel, the opening paragraph of the expert panel's final report says it's about supply, stupid. Like it really is. It's supply is everything. You can't do any of this stuff by saying, well, let's have a government program or let's do this or whatever. It's ultimately, it's about making sure there's enough housing so that prices moderate, that inflation moderates, and ultimately the industry is able to perform properly. Shortages don't serve any industry.
Well, for sure. And what I love about what you also added was, in addition to it's about supply, because that really is the issue, there's also a real slowdown process that takes place when builders and developers are applying for permits or applications. There seems to be a red tape across Canada in general, and that was one of the things discussed at the PAC days earlier this week, where they'd like to get together and perhaps come up with a way to streamline that process. Is that something that you and the other mayors here on the panel today ever discussed personally, to how to move forward on that process?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm constantly driving our own departments to be a little bit more efficient where they can. That said, we wish municipal government had been in the expert panel, because everyone's perception is it takes too long to get a building permit. And then government imposes new regulations that require us to do an extra 2-week process and then another process over here. And environmental, and now we've added things like the step code. Each of those steps increases the processing time for a permit, because it's simply, their housing is much more complicated. It used to be able, the Municipal Act, back when we had a Municipal Act, had a 30-day limit for a building permit. You either gave them a yes within 30 days or a no, and but you had to process it within 30 days. That would be ridiculous if we could finally get back to 30-day permits. Back then, though, we didn't have to deal with the ventilation requirements, the building, the energy efficiency requirements, the seismic requirements that were added to the code 10 years ago. We needed them, but and housing is better today because of them, but it's much more complex to get that. And that said, as well, liability, we know the courts keep ruling that municipalities become more and more liable for things that someone else does that we don't catch. So it's really hard for us to say, yeah, we're going to give you a permit in 2 weeks, and then absorb all the liability for anything we didn't catch.
You said it perfectly. There just weren't enough stakeholders that are involved in this process sitting on that expert panel. And that's where I think collaboratively there needs to be more involvement from all the people involved in the building process to come up with.
Yeah, we've asked the minister now, okay, let's do this part 2 of this, which is the real experts, the people that provide housing, both municipal, the realtors, the builders, the industry itself. Get them in the room and say, okay, let's work through these recommendations and see which ones we can do and which ones need to be tweaked, because ultimately the only people that know how an industry works are the people in the industry.
You got it. I'll speed this up only in the interest of making sure that the other panelists have an opportunity, but I do have 2 more questions. Bylaw officers are calling realtors to give them a friendly heads up to tweak their comments. Is that what I heard?
More like our legal department. If your listing says 3 suites in this house, 5,000 in monthly income, no, there aren't 3 suites. Sorry, we're having to clamp down a little bit on that, partly because we want to keep building in Coquitlam, and if there's an uprising against the real estate sector because they're cheating with impunity. And some of these builders they're building what the market wants. The market wants the basement divided in 2, a 2-bedroom and a 1-bedroom. We know that. And I go into those homes now and I say, well, there's the second suite. It's obvious.
There's all the guts for the second suite anyways. Yes.
Yeah. And the little laundry tub against the wall with the plugs at 4 feet. No one believes that's not going to be the kitchen, but we can't do it with impunity. We have to be able to at least show that we as a municipality are trying to be responsible and to make sure that these buildings comply with the code.
Perfect. And then lastly, Nard just asked, who's going to own the 600 rental houses units when they come to market?
So right now, a bunch of there's about 6,000 rental units in Stream. Some of them are owned by purpose by the conventional developers, the BOZAs, where they decide to set up a separate arm and run a rental company for a rental stock, because they know that right now there is a market for rental, particularly with municipalities like us, for example. We give an extra FSR, an extra floor space ratio for free. If you've used up all your market density, we'll give you another FSR for rental. And so now you've lowered the per square foot land cost for the rental housing to zero. The pro forma works way better because land was free, the dirt was free, obviously with complications associated with underground parking. But by doing that, we've had some people just jump in and say, well, let's build some rental. We're doing the same thing now with childcare, trying to encourage the development of childcare space by giving free density.
Wonderful. Mayor Stewart, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go ahead and eat your breakfast. That was wonderful, by the way. It's now my pleasure to introduce Port Coquitlam's mayor, Mayor Brad West, a lifelong resident of Port Coquitlam. Brad West was first elected to council way back in 2008, and he was re-elected in 2011 and 2014. He has a strong track record. He received the most votes of all candidates both times, which kudos to you, Mayor West. That's no small feat. In 2018, Brad was elected as the 16th mayor of the city of Port Coquitlam. His main focus is on the key priorities of the residents, ensuring Port Coquitlam is the best place in BC to raise a family. Please welcome everyone, Mayor West.
Thanks very much, Josh, for that introduction. It's a real pleasure to be with all of you this morning. I'm here to talk about my favorite topic, Port Coquitlam. As Josh said, we have a vision in this community to be the best place in the province to raise a family. And it's interesting, since becoming a dad, as I did 4 years ago, and then again 5 months ago, we have so many young families moving to our community. Almost every day when I'm out and about, I get stopped by someone who's moved to Port Coquitlam with a young family. And you'll see in my presentation that that families have been a major focus of our council and the work that our city is doing. And really for us, it's all about becoming a complete community. So I do have a bit of a slide here because I want to show some images. But what I'll touch upon is not only what we're doing with respect to housing, but what we're doing to build a complete community, because housing is a fundamental part of that, but there's a lot of infrastructure and supports that are needed as well to support our residents. So I'm really excited to share with you all the work that we're doing. So just hang on a minute. Let's see if I am able to do this. Maybe not.
Mayor West, if you just, it's Cheryl here. If you just go down where it says share screen at the bottom of your panel there, if you just click on that.
Yeah,
oh.
I'm not showing a share screen function on my.
Okay, one second here. Let me.
This is the risk that comes with having a PowerPoint presentation.
See if you can do it now.
I've got to pause and stop recording. Oh, yeah, there we are. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
There we go.
Ooh, that's way better than Coquitlam's.
Okay.
Mayor Stewart, the bar's been set, so you can certainly come back again next year and do this with a slide deck if you like.
There you go.
Well, full credit to the staff. I have very little to do with this part of it other than be able to present it. Anyways, to carry on, there we are. So as I said, the main focus in our community is building a complete community. And for us, we understand how important housing and growth is to our community. And so council has set a priority of customer service in our city. And just to kind of put it in perspective, we have 3 priorities. So we know that, if you have 100 priorities, you don't have any priorities. So one of our key priorities is customer service. And we really work hard to embed that in the culture of the city, because we understand that, it's easy for council to come together and say, all right, we want to be a customer service orientated city and to put that into policies or to regulations. At the end of the day, it's do our frontline staff, to the people who are doing the work, who are interacting with builders and residents and businesses, do they believe in that? Are they demonstrating that? And so I can't say enough about the work that our management team has done to really put customer service at the heart of everything we do and all the interactions we have. Is it always perfect? No, it's not. And then I usually hear about it. But I have to say there's a tremendous amount of work being done to really put customer service at the heart of our organization. There's a number of things that have kind of stemmed from that. The development of our Biz Hub, which is really a one-stop shop for businesses that are looking to come to the city of Port Coquitlam, whether it be a development permit, whether it be a business license. It used to be in the city that you would get sent around to 3 or 4 different places to be able to get what you need to do what you want to do. And we've really gone and streamlined that process in creating a one-stop shop, Biz Hub, where everything that you need to do what it is you're trying to do in the city is available for you, and the support is there to walk you through that process. Because we often find that some of the city's processes can be pretty Byzantine, and you may be an individual, an entrepreneur who has an exciting and fantastic idea, and you want to get it going. You may not be familiar with all the rigmarole that one has to go through to get licensed and to do all the things that you need to do. So really trying to demystify that process, trying to streamline it and simplify it, and trying to put support in place to get people through it. So that's been a real positive, I think, in our city. As well, I have to say, the work that the city has done during the pandemic is something that I'm exceptionally proud of. A lot of really creative things happening in the city, things that, quite frankly, many of us wanted to see before the pandemic. And it's a bit strange that it took a global pandemic to get us to do some of these things that just make sense and people like and want to see, but for whatever the reason, we just weren't able to get there before. We have got there now on a number of items, and I'm really proud of that work, and I'm excited that we're going to make it a permanent feature in our city, and I'll talk about a few of those moving forward. So again, just to talk about business recovery and support during the pandemic, we did really work hand in hand with our businesses during this time. And again, the flexibility that the city has shown, I think, has really provided a lot of evidence towards doing some of the things that we knew were always going to work. But for whatever reason, sometimes people are fearful of the unknown. And even though it's obvious things like, as you see in the picture, allowing businesses to use outdoor spaces, to have those expanded patios, to get onto sidewalks and lanes and use unused parking, to be able to let people have a beverage or a meal outside, or to put some of their retail goods outside. For whatever reason, and I think Mayor Stewart, mentioned liability and risk, I have come to found out drive a lot of municipal process, and I find that frustrating, and always in the back and forth with our staff on that, and it can keep us from doing some really good things. And so I'm really proud, again, under the auspices of the pandemic. We did some things that before people might have been concerned about with respect to risk and liability. And you know what? It's worked out so well. It's been positive for our community, good feedback from our residents. They love it. And it's been a lifeline for so many businesses in Port Coquitlam. So again, I'm really pleased with that whole experience, whether it be the expanded patio program, which we've made permanent, whether it be allowing people to have an adult beverage in one of our city parks. Imagine that, happens all over the world, but for whatever reason in North America, a real reluctance to do that. We've done that in Port Coquitlam, again, extremely positive, and supporting a lot of commerce and business in our city. So those things have been fantastic, and they're here to stay in our community, and I'm really pleased to share that with you. Also want to tell you that on the business front, we are on track to exceed construction permit values from previous years. So 2021 has actually been a very busy year in Port Coquitlam in terms of construction and also in terms of business licensing and expansion. We have already to date issued over 4,000 business licenses, which is about 300 more than we issued in 2019. And so we're seeing a lot of creativity and entrepreneurship be unleashed over the last couple of years. And it's just such a fantastic thing for our community. It makes us that complete community that I talked about. And it does demonstrate, I think, the health of our local economy and our community's resiliency. Getting the basics right is a real foundational concept here in Port Coquitlam, and this gets on to talking about what I was saying in terms of building a complete community. What this means for us is that we're really focused on the core services of the municipality, the things that people actually send their tax dollars to City Hall for. The things that the city has responsibility for. And so we have been focused like a laser beam on that and the infrastructure in our neighborhoods to support growth and development and quite frankly, just to make our quality of life that much better in our city. So what it's meant in terms of our capital plans is that we've been investing in everything from roads to recreation, new sidewalks, new traffic calming infrastructure, filling potholes, paving lanes, updating playgrounds. And I just want to pause there again, and this is my bias as the dad of a 4-year-old. The dollars that we invest in playgrounds, and we've made a huge investment in playgrounds over the last 2 years, just comes back to the community several-fold. We had a lot of hurting playgrounds that were pretty ancient, and to see, new, expanded, modern playgrounds and to see them jam-packed with families and kids on a sunny day, that's really what it's all about. And so I'm really proud. Again, something like that may not be the flashiest thing. It may not grab a headline in the news, but it really is the core of community building and what we're focused on. And I'm really proud of the work we've been doing on updating our playgrounds. And I have to say, there's great playgrounds throughout the Tri-Cities. My son, often likes to say, "Can we go to Mundy Park?" And I have to go in disguise because I can't be spotted outside the city of Port Coquitlam, but I do go and take him there. So Mayor Stewart, your folks have done a tremendous job on that. It gets a big thumbs up from my son. Improving street lighting and many, many other critical municipal services. And so I can tell you that over the next 2 years, we will be investing more in those basics than the city has ever done in its history. And so I think that that's a real important piece of work that the city is doing. And like I said, it supports everything else that we do. It improves the quality of life. And it's taking us into neighborhoods of our city that quite frankly haven't seen investment for way too long. And there's a lot of neighborhoods that were overdue for attention, and I'm really proud that we're getting into those neighborhoods. And I hear frequently from our residents that they appreciate seeing that investment. Just talking about, again, families as it relates to housing. We've done a lot of work over the last number of years to open up more infill opportunities in our single family neighborhoods. We've added a lot of a number of more small lot residential zones. We've adopted, affordable and family friendly housing policy. And those efforts have started to bear fruit. In our city, we have seen density that has been added in almost every corner of the community, appropriate to the neighborhood on the basis of the services and infrastructure that are there to support it. And everything from coach houses to duplexes, apartments. It's really been about trying to ensure that we have options available to people throughout the housing spectrum, and knowing that as you move through your different stages of life, your housing needs will be different, and making sure that there are options in this community for people at every stage of life. And so a lot of good work that's been going on there, and it builds upon the good work, quite frankly, that the city has been doing in this regard for a number of years. So really pleased about the uptake that we have seen on that. Particularly our ground orientated housing, with respect to townhomes. There's been, that has been a go-to form of housing in a number of our neighborhoods, and it's extremely popular with the market. People snatch those up right away, and we have some really vibrant neighborhoods now. I think of Fremont, for instance, where there's both apartment and townhome developments that have gone on. And again, when you go through there and spend time in there, have a lot of friends and family who live in those neighborhoods, the demographics very much are those younger families that I've been talking about. We also know, as Mayor Stewart talked about, that childcare is a really important piece of building that complete community. And so we undertook a childcare action plan. And I also want to say that this is an area where the city's collaborated really well, including with the school district, because I think the school district has a really big role to play, because for a number of reasons, not the least of which is school district has a lot of property. And, I personally think that schools need to be integrated fully as part of a city and community, and it shouldn't be open, just during school hours. We should be utilizing those public assets before and after school, and really have them integrated into our community. And so the school district and all the cities got together and they worked on a childcare task force and came forward with a number of positive recommendations. And we've taken those and we've been implementing those in our city, making a number of regulatory policy changes to encourage more childcare spaces, and also putting our money where our mouth is in that regard, in terms of when the city is developing and building and delivering new community assets, integrating childcare into those. So I will talk about our new community center, which is just phenomenal. And that's an example of that, where we've integrated childcare right into our new community center. Just talk a little bit planning for future growth in many ways. The city is wrapping up its housing needs assessment. We are going through an update of our official community plan and working to ensure alignment in all of those things with the regional growth strategy. And so I think that work is obviously important. It's a roadmap for us. And we're going to continue to do our part in this city to be accommodating future growth. Port Coquitlam has seen tremendous growth. I've lived in this community my entire life. We are attracting more and more people. As I said, we're attracting more and more businesses. There's a lot of real positive things that are going on in our city, and we want to continue to be a step ahead of planning, being thoughtful about where growth is going to be located. And that will be my segue to SkyTrain. And I appreciate Mayor Stewart serving up a softball for me on that. The city is advocating strongly for the expansion of the Evergreen Line to Port Coquitlam. Mayor Stewart articulated it better than I could in terms of the fact that it's already pointed in our direction, ready to go. I can tell you, sitting on the Mayor's Council, the SkyTrain rapid transit projects that are talked about in the region, whether it be to UBC or to the North Shore, Surrey Langley SkyTrain, and I'm sure many others, these are big, massive, expensive projects. And the region, unfortunately, has a bit of a track record of, only doing one of these once a decade or so. And we know that that is not sufficient in not keeping pace with the growth that our communities are experiencing. And so we're working hard as mayors to build and deliver a plan, needs support from senior levels of government to do it, that ensures that our region has a properly functioning rapid transit system that you would expect to see in any modern city in North America or the world, quite frankly. And for us, that means expansion of the Evergreen Line to Port Coquitlam. It's probably one of the lowest hanging fruits that exists in the region in terms of, for a relatively minor investment, you can expand SkyTrain and service a growing community that is doing everything that communities are supposed to do to be able to entice rapid transit to their community. So the densification, the growth, the planning principles, being smart about how all of that is done. We're doing that as a city, and we believe that if we want our residents, and government is saying to people, get out of your vehicles. If we want to make that a reality for people, you have to give people options. Because I can tell you, otherwise, in this community, you are pretty dependent on your vehicle to get your kids to their sports activities, to get your groceries, to get to your job, to do all the things that you need to do. You're pretty dependent on your vehicle. And if we need to, and I believe we do, need to shift away from being so auto-dependent, you have to give people those options. It's not enough just to be punitive and say, okay, we're going to make it more and more expensive for you to drive, but not give you any real alternative. You have to give people alternatives. So for us, a SkyTrain extension to Port Coquitlam helps provide that, and you can bring a community of 60,000 people and growing into the rapid transit network and serve as a hub for people in Pitt Meadows and Maple Ridge. So anyways, there's my pitch on SkyTrain to Port Coquitlam. We continue to see a lot of interest in our community, and there is a lot of opportunity for both new and infill development. As I mentioned, the Dominion Triangle, Fremont area continues to be a hot spot of development in Port Coquitlam. We have very significant light industrial, commercial, and residential development that's occurring in that area. It's been going on over the past few years, and that area has seen a lot of growth, and it's still going strong. And I can tell you that we have a number of applications in as we speak for this area, and I think you're just going to continue to see that area grow and mature, and really offer the three legs of the stool: commercial opportunities, residential opportunities, and light industrial opportunities. And again, going back to the theme of the complete community, it's been really a real positive thing to see there. Another area that is ripe for growth and redevelopment and revitalization is the 6.3 acre Westwood Woodland neighborhood, and that's in West Port Coquitlam. And this is actually the part of our community that is within walking distance of a SkyTrain station, of the Lincoln SkyTrain station that the city of Coquitlam so generously has provided for that part of our community. And I think it took some it took a little bit of evolution in the city and council's thinking, but since my election as mayor, what we've really come to understand is that that area is our frequent transit development area. And it at this point, it is largely a single family home orientated neighborhood, but it is, again, within walking distance of a SkyTrain. And you go on the other side of Westwood, on the Coquitlam side, and significant plans and work already underway. And so it's important that we be in line with reality of what's going on, and understanding that there is opportunity there. So we have designated that area for higher density and mixed use development. And we are seeing a number of applications come forward there. So it is going to be, I think, an area that transforms over the next number of years, and a lot of opportunity to add to the city of Port Coquitlam, to add to what we have to offer. And then also another area that's got a lot of interest and excitement is our downtown. And this is something that I'm really excited about, because I think many of you will know that we really do have an iconic downtown in Port Coquitlam, and revitalizing it and re-energizing it is actually one of council's highest priorities. It's been a lot of work going on in the background over the last number of years to bring new life and new energy to it. And I'm really excited that we're now at the point where these plans are being put into action. And we're seeing projects come forward. So our vision here is for a vibrant, pedestrian-orientated, safe, welcoming, commercial and residential area with a lot of entertainment options. And so we've been very strategic about redevelopment in the area, and the city has been very involved in this as a partner, as an active participant with private development partners to bring about this vision. So I'll just share with you a couple of the projects that are going on. The city is in the midst. In my office, you might be able to hear the jackhammering and the work being done, because just outside my office is McAllister Street, and that's really in the heart of our downtown. And that McAllister is undergoing a massive transformation into a lively and walkable streetscape with wide pedestrian concourse, multi-use path, street trees, furniture that can be moved aside. The street can be shut down for huge open air events that we're going to program. And we're really looking to deliver a world-class street here that's focused on walking and socializing and shopping and celebrating. And so that work is going to be completed in the next couple of months. And it's complementary to a major redevelopment on McAllister being undertaken by Quarry Rock Developments. And that's a mixed use development called the Met, which will be a 5-story building, including street level commercial space and a new public plaza and 63 housing units. And the attention to detail that has been paid to make sure that development integrates into what we're doing in McAllister, and the connection it's going to have with the Donald Pathway, which is this really beautiful meandering pedestrian walkway that's going to be going through the heart of our city, has been second to none. And so I'm really excited about how it all comes together. And I think it's going to create something that's quite unique and special in the downtown. And I think it's going to be, and I mean this seriously, I think it's going to be a landmark thing within Metro Vancouver that people will want to come and check out and be a part of. Part of all of that, again, the city being very active in supporting all of this with infrastructure and with redevelopment of our own and public spaces, is a major upgrade that we're planning to civic spaces downtown. And that includes Lee Square, Veterans Park, and all the adjacent streets and public areas. So you can see here a rendering of what we are looking to do in Lee Square, which is one of the city's primary celebration spaces. And you can see that what we're looking to do is really open it up, create an open concept space for events and day-to-day use, and really make it a place that's attractive and welcoming, and people want to come and spend some time, and that we can program with live music and celebrations and things of that nature. So again, just making sure that all the pieces of the puzzle are there and all supporting each other. And I got another a picture here. This is some of the inspiration of what we're looking to achieve in our downtown. And you can see that really looking for that energy, that lively, welcoming feel. So there's going to be some really major updates happening in downtown. And what I'm most excited about, and what I really pushed our staff on, is, I don't want this to be a 10-year project or even a 5-year project. Let's do this hard and fast, and that's what we're doing. All of this is under construction now. The various elements I've gone through here are all going to be complete, within the next 2 years. So in a very short period of time, you're going to see a transformation in our downtown that I think is going to be very significant, very positive, and it just really sets the stage for unleashing the potential of our community and unleashing the creativity of business and of people, to take these spaces and to do some amazing things with them. So really excited about all of that. Speaking of exciting, images here of our newly opened Port Coquitlam Community Center. If you haven't had the opportunity yet, I encourage you to come check it out. It took 4 years of construction, but we celebrated the official opening finally on October 2nd, which was one of the days that will certainly stay with me as mayor for the rest of my life. It was such an awesome day. This facility really has it all. It's a modern, spacious, 205,000 square foot facility, and it really is a community center, a community hub, and we chose that name on purpose. It used to be the Port Coquitlam Recreation Center. Now it's the Port Coquitlam Community Center, because although there's amazing recreation amenities in that building, there's a lot more than just that. And so the building itself is absolutely stunning, and what's inside it is just as impressive. And I have to say, and you'll hear me say this a lot over the next number of years, in the middle of a pandemic, this project was delivered on time and on budget. And so that's something that's definitely worth celebrating as well. Just to touch on a few of the amenities, and I won't name them all because I would go well over my allotted time. 3 arenas, including a spectator arena with seating for 790 people, a gymnasium, a leisure pool, steam room, sauna, play features, a spray park that's attached to the pool, a state-of-the-art fitness center, including fitness studios, weight room, children's area for city preschool and childcare, Terry Fox Library, Wilson Seniors Lounge, games room, lots of multi-purpose spaces, underground parking for 425 vehicles. So we can't fit all of those cars that Mayor Stewart was talking about needing to find a place for in Port Coquitlam, but we can find spots for 425 of them. One of the things that obviously I think means the most to our community was the unveiling of the outdoor plaza area, which I was really proud to officially unveil as the Terry Fox Hometown Square. And I think you all know that there's nothing that makes our community more proud than being the hometown of Terry Fox. And so the Terry Fox Hometown Square is home to sports courts, playgrounds, walking path, community gardens, that spray park I mentioned, lots of space for events and concerts, and a number of people hadn't seen that. They had seen inside, and they knew inside, the facility offered a lot. And the grand opening was their first opportunity to see what was being delivered outside. And I had so many comments from people about how impressive that area is, and it really is. And also was really proud to announce that council has voted to commission a new Terry Fox sculpture, and that's going to be coming next year to honor our hometown hero and complete the Terry Fox hometown square. Almost at the end here, folks. I just want to say as well that in addition to all that, we do have ongoing capital projects to improve our parks and trails and other spaces. One of the things we saw during the pandemic is people either discovering for the first time or rediscovering our parks and our trails. The Tri-Cities, Port Coquitlam included, but all of us really are so blessed to have unparalleled access to the outdoors and natural areas. And I think that is one of the biggest community assets we have. And so we're making a lot of investments to enhance those spaces, both for recreation use, soccer, lacrosse, baseball, and more, but also for the passive use, for having a picnic with the family, getting out and having a walk, maybe getting together at Gates Park on the screen here and having a beer or a glass of wine with friends, whatever it is. We're recognizing that our trails, our green spaces, our parks are huge assets to our community. They already deliver so much, and with some investment from the city, we can take them that much higher. And so that's another one of our focuses, and there'll be a number of projects coming in that regard over the next couple of years. And finally, this is the last slide I have. I think, along with all of the infrastructure, all of the projects, all of the buildings, what makes Port Coquitlam the amazing place it is our people, and the sense of community we have here in POCO, the sense of pride, the spirit of our people is just so strong. I've been blessed to grow up in it, living here my whole life, and now to be raising my family in it. It really is, I think, something very special. And it's one of the things new residents often comment to me on is, wow, there's such a deep sense of community here. So, coming of the pandemic, it was really challenging for us, obviously, because of that separation. We weren't able to have a number of the events that we're known for, but we found ways to continue to stay connected. And I'm really proud of, the things that happened often under the radar, just to keep our community connected, to check in on people, to make sure everyone was doing all right. And there's a lot of unsung heroes out there in our city who, without any fanfare, went and did amazing things over the last couple of years. And so as we are making our way back to being able to do events and gather responsibly and safely, we're really looking forward to building that sense of pride and community. And there'll be a number of things that we roll out over the next year or so, as we're able to, that allow us to come together and to celebrate, and to do it in some of the amazing new facilities and projects that are being delivered. So anyways, I think it's just a really exciting time in Port Coquitlam. There's a sense of optimism and energy and confidence, a sense that our community is going through a period of growth and revitalization. I'm just so honored to be a part of that as mayor, and appreciate the role that all of you play in helping contribute to it. So we invite people to come and be a part of Port Coquitlam and everything that we've got going on. Thanks very much.
Mayor West, I'll wait till the slideshow stops sharing. That was a fantastic presentation. Thank you very much. You did a great job of encapsulating the pride, the spirit, the growth, the inclusion, and the direction that Port Coquitlam is going. As a member of the Government Relations Committee for the Vancouver Board, the city of Port Coquitlam is in my sightline for one that I report on for our bi-monthly meetings. And it's fun to read the minutes and watch the videos of the meetings that you hold. And everything you've said was in those minutes, the growth, the direction, the daycare, all of it. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, and finally, we have the pleasure of introducing our third and final mayor, the mayor of Port Moody, Mayor Rob Vagramov. Rob was elected as mayor in 2018, becoming one of the youngest leader ever elected to Port Moody. Well done, Rob. As a business professional, Rob has built expertise in digital technology and media. And over the last 8 years, he's worked for a Vancouver-based technology firm operating as an independent contractor, a one-man small business, a powerhouse, Mr. Mayor Rob Vagramov. I'll turn it over to you, Rob.
Thanks so much, Josh. I appreciate the opportunity to be presenting today. Hard to follow the PowerPoint there. Good to see everybody on the call. Looks like a very well attended session here. A lot of names I see. Looks kind of like a compilation of bus ads that you see around town. So that's kind of funny to see everybody's name popping up here. That some of them I know faces when I haven't even met them. So good to see everybody on the call. I know that I'm standing between everybody and their lunch coming up on noon here. So I'm going to be kind of focusing on a couple pieces here. Number one is kind of providing a bit of a snapshot in terms of some just some hard numbers, a bit of a development data snapshot in Port Moody. Talking a bit about our number one project this term on Port Moody City Council, which is our official community plan update. Which is, quite a significant undertaking for Port Moody. And then just talking about a couple smaller priorities of council. I guess they're smaller than the OCP, but it certainly, each one of them certainly has quite a degree of importance attached to them. So right off the bat, some development data. We have our figures provided from our city staff since 2015. So this is kind of looking at the last 5 to 6 years, coming on 7 years of development data here. We look, Port Moody, I'll provide a little bit of context, and this will sort of lead into that OCP conversation. Port Moody's current OCP, the one that is being reviewed, the old OCP or outgoing OCP, if you will, envisions Port Moody growing faster than the Metro Vancouver region. It is certainly a departure from sort of the small town Port Moody pre-SkyTrain. And there have been challenges associated with some of the amendments and visions that have been put in there over the last few years. And that's kind of created quite a bit of friction in the community and of course at decision-making tables in terms of which direction to go down. Since 2015, the city has approved 2,166 apartments. This is again within the context of approximately 15,000 household community. So we're quite a bit smaller than the other Tri-Cities. And this signifies that each of these numbers is quite a bit bigger in comparison per capita. 27,299 square feet of office space. Has been approved, 71,601 square feet of retail space since these numbers came out. This generates approximately 487 employment spaces, employment jobs, 655 working jobs from home for a total of 1,141 jobs being I hate to say created because there's the adage out there that government doesn't create jobs. I could kill jobs pretty easily, but in terms of creation of jobs, I think a more appropriate word would be creating space for the private sector to be creating jobs. So that's a snapshot of what has been going on in the last little bit in terms of hard approvals. We also have our development pipeline. There's approximately 40 development sites that include small lot rezonings, and I'll touch a little bit on that gentle density stuff in a bit. These are under consideration. They represent 3,300 apartments, 103,000 and change square feet of office space, 140,000 and change square feet of retail space and 52,000 square feet of industrial space as well. Now, all of these numbers, of course, are subject to change because those are sort of development proposals, and some of them are higher level than others. But that kind of provides a little bit of a snapshot in time in terms of where we're at, and what we have done in the recent past and what we have in our near future. Looking further, our official community plan update is quite a project for Port Moody. This is really re-envisioning what the city is looking at. I sort of see it as a bit of a referendum on some of the development visions that were added in between revisions of the OCP. Some of them have sort of pitted residents against each other, and in certain cases, residents against industry. And so that's why I think it's really important. And I'm really proud of the work that's being done to get information and opinions directly from our residents, so that it's the residents writing our OCP, and us are sort of, we're led by that. Recently, we've completed 2 large phases of public input, including one of the largest ever respondent rates in Port Moody history, especially for an OCP process. That represented just over 1,800 households / respondents, depending on who filled what out. This is approximately comparing, looking at what the breakdown is in terms of households, represents approximately 1 in 8, 1 in 5, 1 in 8 or 1 in 9 households that are being polled. So this is quite projectable, and it should bring back some data so that the decisions that are being made will withstand the test of time, and will sort of be able to be implemented with minimal friction from within the community. Staff are looking currently at or sort of implementing a recent council direction around additional OCP engagement. This is something that's going to be reported on early next year. This was discussed at one of our committee of the whole and at city council meetings in the past month or so, and I'm excited to hear how that's going to unfold. In terms of timelines, we do. COVID really set this one back. The last couple of years has been a real challenge in terms of, I think, as Mayor West alluded to, seeing some changes within city processes and government processes that were basically, some of them were considered to be impossible or extremely difficult. One of the easiest ones that comes to mind is remote meetings. I remember sort of pioneering the concept of Skyping into a council meeting remotely. We had a policy that allowed for it. I was visiting some family in Kiev on the other side of the world back when we could do that. And I remember having a connection through the hotel and being able to connect into city council chambers, and it went well. And then we had another councillor who tried that from a little bit closer in New Jersey. Didn't work as well. And there were some connection issues that ended up just turning this into a hot button issue that councillors took sides on, and politicizing the issue of is this something that's possible? Is this something that's good for the community? Can we do this? How it's going to be so expensive? We're going to have to hire new people. We're going to have to build new tech infrastructure. We're going to need all this stuff. And then a global pandemic hit, and the next week we were like, okay, we're remote. Here we go. And it sort of shows to me, it highlights the importance of challenging some of the assumptions. Local government and government in general is an extremely large machine, very slow to turn generally. And so I see a great deal of value in challenging some of those preconceived notions. I'll just reiterate that line. It's sad that it took a pandemic to get some of that kind of stuff done, but we are where we are. And it's just interesting to look back and see how easy some of those things could have been. But some of the negatives, of course, coming out of the shifts of COVID, definitely impacted timelines for city projects, and the OCP is one of them. So we are having, personally, I'm having a little bit of an issue currently ballparking when the OCP process will be completed. I'm hoping we'll be able to get it done by the end of the term, and we should know a little bit more once we get our next staff report. That's going to be in Q1 of next year. So that's a bit of an update on our OCP update process. We recently completed the our end of the housing needs report as mandated by the province. You know, quite a rigorous discussion around the council table when that item came back, including the role of supply and demand, as Mayor Stewart mentioned. You know, the supply side, I think, is pretty clear in terms of the real estate industry, and of course in the development industry. That sort of the supply side can never be understated or overstated, I should say, when in reality it is a balance of the two, and local government doesn't have the control over something like immigration rates or who has the right to own property in the country. Of course, these are decisions that are made by the federal government, and so we are really on the supply side of the discussion. I think that we have in Port Moody shown that not only does our previous OCP peg us at growing faster than the region, but also currently we appear to be even overshooting those growth targets. So in terms of looking at the region and looking at different cities and how some cities have single family housing right beside some of their SkyTrain stations, I'd say Port Moody is definitely pulling its own weight. I know it's not quite as aggressive in terms of growth plans as our neighbors like Coquitlam, but certainly we are doing our part for densification, and it's something that I support as long as it is keeping in balance with the needs of the community, the infrastructure that we have, our parks, and general livability. A couple other projects that are in progress on the council side: inclusionary zoning policy, something that's probably going to be coming back pretty soon. Family-friendly units policy. This is sort of a project to outline requirements for larger residential units as part of new residential developments. That's also underway. There is a provincially mandated process to address land use contract areas. I don't know how much of that really affects some of the folks that might be on this call, but that is a project that we're undertaking right now. I think that's more of a development one. And of course, we're looking at appropriate zoning for our LUC areas as appropriate. So that kind of looks at a couple of the projects that we have underway in terms of looking at some of our policies. The last piece that I'll touch on here is the economic development side. As I say, government doesn't really create jobs unless those are government jobs or government funded jobs, but certainly plays a role in bringing together a business community and supporting a business community in creating employment spaces. When we saw an OCP amendment that was added into our plan last term in the Moody Center area to jack up the densities there and sort of double or over double some of the height allowances and whatnot, this, in my opinion, was done putting the cart before the horse. The OCP vision was added, but the project itself, it's been how many years and is still not in the city's hopper for official consideration until I think a couple months ago. This really impacted local businesses in a really negative way. A lot of land speculation led to assessments going up, tax rates going up, and we saw an exodus of business out of Moody Center, which has historically been a bit of a job zone. Although I have noticed that there are some folks in our community that kind of might look down on some of the auto-centric jobs or sort of light industrial stuff that's over there. It's something that has kept folks employed in Port Moody and is something that I personally am proud of. It was interesting campaigning in 2018 and looking for a campaign office and going around town, and in Moody Center where that exodus has taken place, I was just like, oh my God, how are there this many vacancies in one part of town for for retail ground level CRUs, and this is one of the effects of that kind of land use planning without a fulsome plan to finish it, and certainly without a lot of the community support that makes large scale projects viable and makes them stick into the long term. So Moody Center is one of the areas that we're looking at in our OCP review process in terms of my hope is to focus that neighborhood on that kind of economic development so that we could rebuild a bit of an economic engine and have that fuel our city's finances, and try to stem some of the depressing numbers of 9 out of 10 employees or residents, I should say, leaving town. Nowadays, maybe virtually, but still working outside of Port Moody. It's a trend that has only gotten worse with time. Every so often I hear people say, oh, we're concerned about becoming a bedroom community. And quite opposite to that, I am working to try to move us away from being one, because I think that the numbers clearly show that Port Moody is a bedroom community when compared to other municipalities in the Lower Mainland. So trying to bring folks so that you have, instead of, as one of our counselors put it, instead of an evacuation once a day for work of the entire city, we will hope to have folks taking SkyTrain in to town to work, so that they can create economic opportunities in the city. And of course, I think will benefit a community in so many different ways, not only from spin-off businesses, not only from a daytime economy, but also from a taxation point of view, where that residential burden can be taken care of by an expanding business tax base. So that's a little bit of economic development. This term, I was really proud to see the city's very first economic development officer being hired, and that was a shock to me when we were sort of being briefed in our new in the new term, was to realize that this was such an obvious gap, and that communities our size really do have these kind of offices. Economic development is a huge file now. It's something that I think is only going to expand as time goes on, and I think it's really, really important. We're also prepping in the background for an industrial land strategy in 2022. You know, we've seen a lot of stuff in the news lately in the region around industrial space and the need for industrial space. And it's really important that not only are we planning to create industrial space where we can, but it's also really important that we stem a trend out in the development community to convert industrial space into those easy and highly profitable condos. They're great in terms of providing housing at market value, but they are not great in terms of that employment focus. And so I think as a region, this is going to be a challenge for us, where we seem to have this trend where industrial land is converted into residential land, and then it's of course the forests, the natural spaces, and other such locations that are converted into the industrial space, so that I'm hoping that regionally we can sort of come to terms with that and try to densify our industrial spaces, revitalize them as I hope to see in Moody Center, along with residential, but certainly focusing on the employment-focused uses, so that we could sort of stop encroaching outside of our urban containment boundary, as Mayor Stewart so rightly put it. And that pretty much summarizes my my update here. Thank you so much for having me, Josh. Thanks to the staff team in the background there. I'm happy to take any questions that you guys may have.
Mayor Vagramov, thank you very much. You did an incredible job bringing that together without a slide deck, no less. I think you took us all on a journey of what's happening in Port Moody, and it was great. Good job. You also rounded out Mayor's discussion, so we're coming to a close. With that said, for everyone here, I'd like to ask the mayors, we're coming close to the end of our session, which would be at 11:30. Do you have a few extra minutes, maybe 15 minutes to stay on for the questions we have in the queue?
Putting us on the spot here live. Who could say no to that?
It's kind of hard to say no, but you can say no. There's no
I'll-
question about it. You have
I'll say no. No way. We got things to do.
no, yeah,
Absolutely.
no, we all right. Well, listen, I'll make sure you get the first questions in there, Stewart. That's actually not true. I'm going to dive right in. So here we go. I'm going to read them out for you. And thank you for agreeing to stay a few extra minutes. I appreciate that. For all the participants that are in the room watching right now and listening, if you have any other questions, put them in the Q&A section down below on your Zoom screen, and that will make sure that they get addressed for the best of our abilities. So here we go. This one's for you, Mayor Vagramov. Will Port Moody see critical housing supply move forward at Andres Wine, Coronation Park, Flavel, Moody Centers, transit-oriented development, and woodlands? Sorry, you may have probably touched on that, but we'll go ahead and address it again.
Sure. Yeah, I think I had two pieces there. I guess I'll just pull it up here so I can make sure I answer all of them. When I'm looking at, it just looks like
I'll put it back. Sorry, I moved it too fast. I'll move it back.
No worries.
It's in dismissed. Go to dismissed.
Go to dismissed here. Gotcha. Okay, yeah, I see it here. So something like Moody Center TOD, that's going to be a neighborhood that I think is going to be a pretty essential focus for our official community plan process and review. So that's one I think is going to be we'll likely see some feedback that way. The other ones that are mentioned here, Coronation Park is moving forward. I believe they're sitting at second, or they're coming back for their final readings pretty soon. Council was supportive of the last time that they were before council, and now they'll have a nice backdrop over there in Coquitlam with the towers planned there as well. On the Andres Wine site, it's waiting on the proponent. That's not something we can't really force the proponent to bring an application forward. So the ball is in their court. Similarly with Flavel and /Oceanfront, while it's not a vision that I support for that part of town personally, it is in our official community plan currently, and that ball is also in the developer's court. Woodland Park was recently before our council. Minister Eby has been quite adamant about some of the BC housing components in Woodland Park, and that was also favorably received at the council table. My only reservation on something like that in that part of town would be infrastructure, and try to get some transportation options there with hopefully a third SkyTrain station in Port Moody. And of course, as I mentioned, I think we could probably build Port Moody up with if we're talking about paving POCO, we could maybe pave Port Moody and build some 100-story towers from sea to shining lake, and we would. My guess would be that the price of housing would remain relatively unchanged. Again, talking about supply and demand does, of course, work. It's just about the sandbox that you're looking at it in. So we can't look at Port Moody or even Metro Vancouver as one sandbox when our 18-year-olds are entering the market and they're competing with the billionaires of the entire globe. And so, yes, supply will have an impact on those kind of prices, but I can't see an end to demand when the pool is open that broadly, and that's coming from somebody who's a refugee to the west and a proud immigrant as well.
Thank you for your answer. Mayor West, any plans about the SkyTrain extension to POCO? Yeah, I know you addressed on that, and then there's a follow-up question, which is any OCP amendments in downtown if POCO has a SkyTrain?
Yeah, so we are going to go through the OCP update, and those types of questions certainly will be on the table. We have been identifying areas that could accept higher density. I mentioned the Westwood Triangle area close to Lincoln SkyTrain Station. There are some geotechnical limitations that exist within different areas of our community that make higher density a challenge, particularly as it relates to sufficient parking. But I can share that the city has actually reduced parking requirements quite significantly in the downtown to facilitate redevelopment, because we don't want parking to be an obstacle to what we want to see achieved in our community. So certainly that's very much on the table. I think that you'll see in a number of different areas where geotechnical supports the opportunity for higher density to that be incorporated into the OCP. With respect to how that expresses itself within our downtown. I mean, right now, our downtown, as I think many folks will know, is actually pre-zoned for density. And you can, in fact, come in and build, fairly significant density within downtown Port Coquitlam with no rezoning process, simply a permit. The reason why we have seen it limited largely to 5 and 6 story housing projects is because of those geotechnical challenges. But the corner of Shaughnessy and Lougheed has been an area that's been talked about for higher density towers. I know the property owner of the Shaughnessy station, where the Safeway currently have talked about longer term plans there, as well as Poco Place Mall. So I expect that we will see that proceed, over the next number of years. And the city is going to be supportive of that. We understand that that's part of the equation, and we're absolutely willing to do our part.
Thank you very much for your answer. I appreciate that. This one's, again, a bit of a follow-up to the SkyTrain coming from Aaron. Popular conversation. How can the SkyTrain come to POCO without high rises? This participant's understanding is that underground parking has been an issue for building high rises in POCO, and she just wants to know for clarification, could she be wrong here on that question or thought?
No, she's certainly correct, and sort of touched on that in just my previous comments there, that there are some challenges as it relates to geotech and producing the required parking for high rises. That being said, as I mentioned, the city has reduced its parking requirements. So I think within reach, it's going to, I think that the model here is going to look something like the high rise that is close to Lions Park on Shaughnessy. I expect we'll see that type of development take place around Shaughnessy and Lougheed. It will probably remain on that side of the railway tracks, again, because of some of the limitations that exist. So, when it comes to high rises in the city, there's the two main challenges: the parking requirement, and as I said, the city has gone and reduced the requirements quite significantly to make it much more viable. But the other thing we can't do anything about is the geotech. But I'm sure there's smart engineers that exist in the world that will figure out some of those challenges.
Yeah, just a matter of time. Mayor Vagramov, this one's for you, coming from one of our members. How many housing units has Port Moody Council moved forward in the past 3 years to contribute to the fulfillment of the regional growth strategy? Is that a number you have a thought on?
Not right off the top of my head, but I do have numbers, maybe not 3 years, but the 5-year projection there from our staff. In terms of townhouses, it was 311, and apartments were 2166. One other thought on this, and I think this is something I actually kind of forgot to touch on during my presentation there, but it's related to this, is sort of the gentle density side of things. There's a lot of focus on the big boys and their the sort of big companies that come in there with big projects, but it's the small town family developers or folks that are looking to build space for either aging parents or the younger generation. Port Moody has really taken that on pretty aggressively in the last few years. The small lot subdivision program is one that I'm really happy to see every time it comes before the council table. It's taking some of our single family lots and just cutting them in half. Some of them long ways, some of them wide ways. Don't ask me how many times the council has gone back and forth on what's better, if it's better to cut it one way or the other. Laneway houses is another one. Having laneway accessory dwelling units is something that we support in a number of our in our neighborhoods. And then finally, is the secondary suite piece. So if you look at one of our one prime lot in Moody Center or a couple other parts of town, maybe Seaview is another example, you could end up in a scenario where you can go from one single family home to two with two secondary suites with two laneway homes. So you end up with quite a significant amount of density, all in a gentle form factor. We've had quite a few of those, and I'm hoping to expand those as well. So sorry about not having those 3-year numbers right off the top of my head, but we did have the 5-year provided by our staff.
It was a trick question anyways. There's no way you can prepare for that number. There's another question, just a follow-up for you, Mayor Vagramov. When will the City of Port Moody release their updated OCP?
Yeah, good question. I'm hoping for the end of the term. I'm hoping that we'll be able to get that done by the end of next year. That is all going to depend on how the next few decision points play out in terms of further public consultation and sort of staff timeline. So I mentioned that we'll probably have a better understanding in Q1.
Okay, thank you for that. Mayor Stewart, not to leave you out, but this question is for both you and Mayor West. We'll warm you up for your questions. Mayor West and Mayor Stewart, please comment on the Fremont connector in relieving the Burke Mountain traffic leading to Costco and Fremont Village, affecting the Riverwood community specifically.
I'll start, since Coquitlam, that connector, actually the Fremont connector, was designed by one of our Coquitlam residents who came up to me about 10 years ago and said, that was me 40 years earlier, when we were laying out the pattern of roadways and how do you get the arterials connecting folks so that David goes east-west across the ridge of the mountain, if you will. Guilford connects obviously over to Port Coquitlam as well, and there is a bridge missing at Lincoln that needs to be added so that those connections. But Fremont has been a bit of a challenge. We have wanted to see Fremont done as soon as possible because we don't actually want to be dumping a lot of the traffic out of the developed areas of Burke Mountain into Port Coquitlam without having some arterial connections. Port Coquitlam had weighed in on the alignment. They didn't like the original alignment. There was some proposals for different alignments, and I'll go over to Brad now because Port Coquitlam has worked out those issues, and we're back at the table. We're trying to get this thing built as quickly as possible.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And anytime I appear anywhere with Mayor Stewart, I know that we'll have this question posed to us. We've gotten used to that. Look, I'm really pleased that there's been, in my mind, more progress on this topic in the last couple of months than there has been probably in the last couple of decades. And I think that we're moving fairly expeditiously towards getting the Fremont connector constructed, because there's no doubt that it has had a significant impact on the north side of Port Coquitlam. And so Mayor Stewart is right. There was quite a lengthy process in years prior around the alignment and the consideration of a number of the existing neighborhoods on the north side of Port Coquitlam and where exactly that Fremont connector was going to go, and making sure that the connection at Lincoln, when it crosses into the city of Coquitlam, made sense. You know, I'm really pleased that we have sorted those through. The cities have come to alignment on the alignment. And we are we have the Fremont connector within our short-term capital plan. So we're putting money away for its construction. Myself and Mayor Stewart will be lobbying strongly to the region and the province to recognize this as not only important to Coquitlam and Port Coquitlam, but to the region as well, and looking for support to get the funding in place to get it constructed. It's an absolutely essential connection for our communities and for the region, get people to places of employment, etc. So, you know, I think the most important piece on this is there's been a lot of good work and engagement happen between the two cities we have been able to resolve some of the issues that were stymieing us before. And I'm looking forward to moving forward and getting the thing built.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for your answers. We've got another question.
I can
Yep, go
add
ahead, Mike.
very quickly if I can. I want to take my hat off to Port Coquitlam Council and Mayor West, because ultimately this region is different from a lot of other regions. The City of London is one big region, almost the same size as the City of Vancouver, and yet we are split up into 23 different jurisdictions. Working out those intermunicipal issues is really important, and I appreciate very much the perspective that Brad has brought to that question so that we can get these things worked out.
Thank you. Here's another question. I like this question. It's coming out of the chat, so I'll read it there though. Is there a way to build a bridge from Port Coquitlam to Coquitlam in the Lincoln Avenue area to the SkyTrain, separated by the trail and of course the river, by having a bridge or car can pass? So any thoughts on that? That would be for both of you.
Richard, did you want to start there? You referenced it before, actually.
Actually, we just referenced it only because these are things that were planned out 40 years ago. I was in university when we first heard about the discussions associated with the Lincoln connector, because at the time Guildford goes through as a 4-lane and it continues, the right of way continues. It's called Ozada after once it crosses pipeline, and it loops down, and it's supposed to tee into a 4-lane connection that is Lincoln from Coquitlam, in between the elementary school and Maple Creek Middle School, and straight across. The alignment's been there for a long time, and there's a road right of way established for it. Getting the two communities on board is always an issue, and the priorities change and perspectives change. We've had similar kinds of transportation issues with New Westminster on the United Boulevard connector to Braid. Ultimately, we need to get these things resolved faster, and we need to be able to cooperate with each other so that transportation challenges aren't stymieing the growth that we need in order to meet these demands.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make a comment. We're 4 minutes out, so this will be the last question. It's likely going to be a big one, so I wish you all well and luck with this question that I'm about to ask. And then when we're done at exactly 11:45, if we haven't quite finished, I'll let the last speaker finish, and we'll have a hard stop right after that. So here we go, gentlemen. In terms of the big picture, can you comment on municipal amalgamation to help with the beleaguered taxpayers and achieve very substantial overhead reductions with 21 municipalities in Metro Vancouver, each resourcing independently, massive duplication of resources? It is comparable to a corporation having 21 head offices in a metro area. It made sense perhaps when one rode a horse from Vancouver to Maple Ridge, but today in this era, there would be massive savings. I'll leave it there because I think that pretty much just carries on. But what are your thoughts on that question as I started it off?
Well, we can't do that because we need 23 mayors for sure. So that's got to be the starting point for sure for discussion. No, but in all seriousness, this is something that I've heard kicked around time and time again, and I feel as though the smaller municipalities are the ones that would probably, I mean, speaking as the smallest one in the Tri-Cities, we would probably be the ones that stood to lose a bit of identity in some kind of amalgamation of the Tri-Cities. But ultimately that sort of thing is up to the public. It's not something that has been an election issue. I don't know, so at least since I can remember. I'd be really interested to hear Mayor Stewart's sort of historical take on that as well. But it's something that I think would have to be led by the public, if ever. I don't think you're going to get that as a top-down initiative.
Yeah, I'll agree. This has been in the discussion for decades, and everyone talks about this massive savings. It doesn't happen. Greater Toronto came together and their costs went up, largely because of the collective agreements. And so if one agreement had 3 weeks vacation to start and the other ones had 2, well, of course, everyone went to 3. And the amalgamated version of this didn't really save the kind of money that they were talking about. Where it does make sense is trying to figure out particular aspects of local government, like policing, for example. We have an amalgamated police force for the Tri-Cities other than Port Moody, my apologies, but Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam, Belcaire and Anmore all share an RCMP detachment. We can do those kinds of things. And it would also allow for much better decisions related to transportation networks, but we're getting our stuff together, and I appreciate Port Coquitlam coming to the table on those kinds of issues so that ultimately those decisions are seamless. The public doesn't know the border, and it shouldn't be obvious that the border is where all the barriers are, so that the transportation network becomes discontinuous between two communities. So ultimately, I don't think it would save a lot of money. Coquitlam has supported the discussion before, but ultimately it gives the capacity for better governance.
Yeah.
Stewart.
Yeah,
Mayor,
just
with seconds left.
sure. Yeah, very quickly, I concur with the comments of my colleagues. I think where it makes sense, we've shown a good degree of cooperation. Mayor Stewart references the RCMP. I'll reference another one. The cities have come together with respect to mobile business licenses, intermunicipal. When the region it's funny, it wasn't that long ago that one of the big things we were trying to figure out in the region is how to allow ride hailing within Metro Vancouver. And, there was a lot of politics involved in that. I will say emanating from Surrey, for one. What did we do in the Tri-Cities? We got together and made it happen before the rest of the region had it figured out. And then it happened that the rest of the region got figured out, and we are where we are. On the things where it makes sense, we've shown the capacity to work hand in hand and get it done. I think that's what our residents expect, as Mayor Stewart said. But, bigger isn't always better. I would point to the city of Vancouver, much larger than us, large tax increases. Their processes are, from what I understand, fairly long and meandering. Our community in Port Coquitlam, and I know in the other Tri-Cities, we've shown ourselves to be resourceful, very nimble. Our property taxes in Port Coquitlam are amongst the lowest in Metro Vancouver. So as Mayor Stewart said, and Mayor Vagramov, it doesn't always follow that those savings, although as a layperson, you would expect, okay, put them all together and you get all these savings. But we do have examples of where that has been tried, and it has not turned out that way. So yeah, we're happy being Port Coquitlam.
Wonderful, thank you. And with that, I want to thank all three of the mayors for your time, the graciousness for the extension, and we went even a little past that. Your answers were thoughtful, articulate. The slideshow was outstanding. But the information and the content that we all received from every one of you, super beneficial. And no doubt we'll be using some of what you said when we're talking with our clients moving forward. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you on behalf of the Vancouver Board of Vancouver, the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver, and on all of the participants. Thank you very much, mayors. I do have some things to speak to the participants. So mayors, if you need to log off, by all means, go right ahead. I've got a few parting things to say.
Thank you. Have a great day. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I'll say this quickly before everyone goes. I know we're starting to log off real quick. There will be some feedback sent to you by way of email. We'd love to hear what you have to say. So please respond to the survey as it comes along. There's a few more municipal updates coming your way. Check your member portal at REBGV.ca. There's some fantastic stuff coming your way. Thank you, everyone, for your time and your attendance. Very much appreciated. All the best and have a great day.